This and That with Me and You is a podcast where we discuss some pretty dark and disturbing things.
I talk about true crimes and cults and a lot of death.
And I talk about the creepier stuff like paranormal, supernatural, and cryptids.
Viewer discretion is advised while listening to us. Warning.
All right, let's get into this. All right, babe, we are on episode 24.
24.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, we're finally into the month of December.
We are. You got any special updates or anything for anybody?
No, nothing really exciting for me.
Okay. I don't either. We decorated for Christmas.
Yeah.
Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I know it's 2 episodes past at this point.
We had a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we had a really good one. It was surprisingly civil.
Yeah.
All right. Quick shout out to Jeremy, because I know he listens to the episodes, but What Does the Fox Say by Leo? Eli still headbangs to it, man. So what do you got for us?
So, let's count down to Christmas with some crazy Christmas true crime stories.
Oh yeah?
For the entire month of December, I will be covering a total of 10 stories from an article I found on truecrimelist.com for the top 10 crime cases that took place on or around Christmas. Now you may be thinking to yourself, how are you going to cover 10 stories when you only post one episode a week? I have a plan for that. Since we have 4 episodes in December, including the episode that airs on Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
I can do this a couple different ways, but I'm going to do 2 stories some weeks and 3 stories other weeks, depending on how detailed the stories are.
Okay.
So, to kick off our Killdown to Christmas,
There you go.
I will be starting with number 10 on the list, the Sodder children disappearances.
Sodder children. Haven't we brought them up before?
I don't know. It was the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. It was 1945 in Fayetteville, West Virginia. George and Jenny Sodder and their 9 of their 10 children went to sleep for the night. One son was away in the army. Around
Okay.
1 a.m., a fire broke out. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children escaped, but the other 5 were never seen again.
Oh boy.
I know, it sounds like an open shut case here.
Sorry
But wait,
sorry for the cats again.
there's more.
Okay.
Upon realizing 5 of his children were still in the burning house, George broke a window to re enter the house, slicing off a chunk of skin from his arm. But he didn't care. He couldn't see anything through the fire and smoke, which had taken over all of the downstairs rooms, living room, dining room, kitchen, office, his and Jenny's bedroom, and the stairwell.
Oh man.
So 2-year-old Sylvia, whose crib was in their bedroom, 17-year-old Marion, 23-year-old John, and 16-year-old George Jr. were all safe outside. That left 14-year-old Maurice, 12-year-old Martha, 9-year-old Louis, 8-year-old Jenny, and 5-year-old Betty, who shared 2 bedrooms between the 5 of them, remaining in the burning home.
Wow.
George is assuming they are upstairs since he couldn't find them downstairs, and the stairs were totally engulfed in flames. So he raced back outside, hoping to reach them through the upstairs windows. But the ladder he always kept propped against the house was oddly missing.
Yeah.
Then he had an idea. He would drive one of his 2 coal trucks up to the house and climb up on top of them to reach the windows.
Okay.
However, despite them working fine the day before, neither of them would start now.
Hmm.
Then he tried scooping water from a rain collection barrel, and it was frozen solid.
Wow.
17-year-old Marion sprinted to a neighbor's house to call the Fayetteville Fire Department, but couldn't get any operator response. A neighbor who saw the fire made a call from a nearby tavern, but again, no operator responded.
Hmm.
So the neighbor drove into town and tracked down Fire Chief F.J. Morris, who initiated Fayetteville's version of a fire alarm. which at that time was just a phone tree system.
Yeah, so not a great system.
Yeah. The fire department was only 2.5 miles away from the house, but the crew did not arrive there until about 8 a.m. So
Oh, man.
7 hours after the fire started.
Yeah.
By that time, the Sodders' home was just a smoking pile of ash.
Yeah.
George and Jenny assumed that 5 of their children were dead, but a brief search of the remains on Christmas Day turned up no trace of remains.
Hmm.
Chief Morris suggested that the fire got hot enough to completely cremate the bodies. A state police inspector who combed through the rubble attributed the fire to faulty wiring.
Hold on. Hot enough to cremate? There's no way.
George covered the remaining basement with 5 feet of dirt, intending to preserve the site as a memorial.
Oh.
The
Oh.
coroner's office issued 5 death certificates just before the new year, attributing the causes of death to fire or suffocation.
Hmm.
There's definitely more, okay? Just wait.
All right.
The Sodders soon began to wonder if their children were still alive, though. George Sodder was born. This I'm going to go back to like backstory here. So George Sodder was born Giorgio Sodu in Tula, Sardinia, Italy, in 1895, and immigrated to the United States in 1908 when he was 13. An older brother who had accompanied him to Ellis Island immediately returned to Italy, leaving George on his own. George found work on the Pennsylvania railroads carrying water and supplies to the laborers, and after a few years, he moved to Smithers, West Virginia. Smart and ambitious, he first worked as a truck driver, and then he launched his own trucking company,
Okay.
hauling dirt for construction and later freight and coal. One day, he walked into a local store called the Music Box and met the owner's daughter, Jenny Cipriani, who had come to the United States from Italy when she was 3. They married and had 10 children between 1923 and 1943. It's fucking 20 years of
Mm-hmm.
pregnancy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they settled in Fayetteville, West Virginia, an Appalachian town with a small but very active Italian immigrant community.
Mm-hmm.
The Sodders were said to be a pretty well respected middle class family. However, George had some very strong opinions about just about everything.
Mm.
Sounds like someone I might know.
Hey now.
Everything from business to current events and especially politics. But George, for some reason, really did not want to talk about his youth in Italy or what happened that made him to immigrate to the States.
Little sus.
He was, however, pretty outspoken about his dislike for the Italian dictator Mussolini,
Ah.
occasionally engaging in heated arguments with other members of the Fayetteville Italian community.
Hmm.
So there's a little backstory to give us some context on things. And now
Mm-hmm.
we go back to the present of the story, which is after the fire. So the Sodder family planted flowers across the space where their home had stood. And as a collective, they started to notice some odd things that happened leading up to the fire that they had thought nothing of at the time.
Right.
There was a strange man that showed up at their home a few months before the fire in the fall, asking about a job. He went to the back of the house while he was there, pointed to 2 separate fuse boxes, and said, "This is going to cause a fire someday,"
Hmm.
which is odd, to say the least. Even more so odd since George had the local power company come check the wiring and they pronounced it in fine condition.
Yeah.
Around the same time, another man tried to sell the family life insurance and became downright irate when George declined,
Hmm.
saying, and I quote, "Your goddamn house is going up in smoke and your children are going to be destroyed."
Premeditation somehow?
You're going to be paid for the dirty remarks you have been making about Mussolini. That was the end of it. Paused too
Ah.
soon. So the older Sodder sons also recalled that just before Christmas, they noticed a man parking along US Highway 21, which their house was like on the corner of,
Mm-hmm.
intently watching the younger kids as they came home from school.
Did.
Creepy.
Yeah.
So around 12:30 a.m. Christmas morning, after the children had all opened a few presents and everyone had gone to sleep, the house phone rang.
Okay.
Jenny answered it, and an unfamiliar female voice asked for an unfamiliar name. There was laughter and glasses clinking in the background, and Jenny said, "You have the wrong number," and hung up. Tiptoeing back to bed, she noticed that all of the downstairs lights were still on. The curtains were open, and the front door was unlocked. She
Mm.
saw Marion asleep on the sofa in the living room and assumed that the other kids were upstairs in bed. She turned off the lights, closed the curtains, locked the door, and went back to bed. She had just started to doze off when she heard one sharp, loud bang on the roof, and then a rolling noise.
Mm-hmm.
An hour later, she woke up again to heavy smoke curling into her room. Jenny just could not understand how 5 children could die in a fire and leave no bones, no flesh, no nothing.
Right.
So she actually ended up conducting private experiments of her own,
Mm-hmm.
burning animal bones, chicken bones, beef joints, and pork chop bones, to be specific.
Right.
Each time she was left with a heap of charred bones.
Right. Because even in cremation, it's almost impossible to get rid of bones.
Right. I know for a fact because I have someone's ashes that there are like bone shards, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they realized that if the fire had been electrical, wouldn't they have lost power?
Yeah.
So why did they still have power downstairs when the fire was going?
Right.
A witness came forward stating they saw a man at the fire scene the night of the fire carrying a block and tackle used for removing car engines.
Hmm.
So did somebody mess with the coal trucks?
Yeah.
So obviously he probably wouldn't have carried a whole ass engine out, but
Well, no, but so if you're, you know, in a rush, you're not gonna pop the hood to go see if the truck's all intact, you know. And a coal truck is a pretty damn big truck.
mm-hmm. So one day while visiting the site of the fire, Sylvia found a hard rubber object in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
And Jenny recalled hearing the hard thud on the roof, followed by that rolling sound.
Mm-hmm.
And George ran with this, and I guess judging by information that I do not know that he had, he concluded that it was a napalm pineapple bomb that
Yeah.
she heard, and that was a part of it.
I'll explain more after this, but it's an incendiary device, yes.
Okay. Then came reports of sightings. A woman claimed to have seen the missing children peering from a passing car while the fire was still in progress.
Mm-hmm.
A woman operating a tourist stop between Fayetteville and Charleston, some 50 miles west, said she saw the children the morning after the fire. She stated she served them breakfast and there was a car with Florida license plates that they came in. A woman at a Charleston hotel saw the children's photos in a newspaper and said she had seen 4 of the 5 children a week after the fire.
Mm-hmm.
The children were accompanied by 2 women and 2 men, all of them Italian. The entire party stayed at the hotel in a large room with several beds. They registered at about midnight. She tried talking to the children, but the men appeared hostile and refused to allow her to talk to the children. And so she gave up. And one of the men looked at her in a hostile manner, and he turned around and began talking rapidly in Italian. And immediately the whole party stopped talking to her.
Hmm.
And they left really early the next morning.
Right.
And that's just her statement to the police, briefly. So in
Okay.
1947, George and Jenny sent a letter about the case to the FBI. And they received a reply from J. Edgar Hoover himself,
Mm.
stating as follows: although I would like to be of service, the matter related appears to be of local character and does not come within the investigative jurisdiction of the Bureau.
Right.
Hoover's agents, however, did say they would assist if they could get permission from the local authorities. However, the
The big
local
if.
police and fire department declined the offer,
Yeah.
which is sus to me. Next, the Sodders turned to a PI named C.C. Tinsley.
Mm-hmm.
who discovered that the insurance salesman who threatened George was a member of the coroner's jury that deemed the fire accidental.
Right.
Red flag.
Yeah.
So Tinsley also heard a disturbing story from the Fayetteville minister about F.J. Morris. Remember him? He was the fire chief
Mm-hmm.
that took like 7 hours to get a team of firefighters to the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he supposedly confided to the minister that he had found a human heart in the ashes, hid it inside a dynamite box, and buried it right there at the scene of the fire. Just remember, y'all, this happened in 1945. This was not like that long ago. There
Mm-hmm.
are people still alive that were alive when this happened. Like, for instance, my dad. He was just like under 2 years old when this happened.
Right.
Oh, he was the same age as the baby that survived.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 78 years ago. That's a long time in the span of human life, but in the span of existence.
Yeah.
Anyway, so modern medicine was starting to be a thing. Like,
We were working our way
anyway,
up.
so Tinsley persuaded Morris to show them the spot. Together, they dug up the box and took it straight to a local funeral director who poked and prodded the heart
Mm-hmm.
and concluded it was, in fact, a beef liver.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, completely untouched by fire, also.
Mm-hmm.
Soon afterwards, the Sodders heard rumors that the fire chief, rumors,
Yeah.
did not find that there at all. He just buried the beef liver there and created a rumor about a heart to placate the family into ending the investigation.
Yes.
I don't know how he thought that was going to work, but okay. Just a heart.
Yeah.
Any remains, I guess, he was thinking.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay. So, over the next few years, the tips and leads continued to come. George saw a photo of school children in New York City, and he was convinced that one of them was Betty.
Right.
He actually drove to Manhattan in search of the child, but her parents refused to speak to him, which
Mm-hmm.
I find sus also.
Well, on that front, consider the fact that a random, at this point, older man comes banging on your door demanding to speak to your daughter.
Right.
Because I doubt with his hysterics at this point, he's going to be explaining himself thoroughly.
So, in August of 1949, the Sodders decided to mount a new search at the scene of the fire, and they brought in Washington, D.C. pathologist named Oscar B. Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
The excavation was thorough, uncovering several small objects, damaged coins, a partly burned dictionary, and several shards of vertebrae.
Yeah.
Hunter sent the bones to the Smithsonian, which issued the following report. The human bones consist of 4 lumbar vertebrae belonging to one individual. Since the transverse recesses are fused, the age of this individual at death should have been 16 or 17.
Mm-hmm.
The top limit of age should be about 22, since the centra, which is normally fused at 23, is still unfused. On this basis, the bones show greater skeletal maturation than one would expect for a 14-year-old boy. The oldest missing Sodder child was 14.
Right.
It is, however, possible, although not probable, for a boy of 14 and a half years to show 16 to 17 maturation. So the report also stated that the vertebrae showed no evidence that they had been exposed to fire.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very strange that no other bones were found in the allegedly careful evacuation of the basement.
Yeah.
Noting that the house reportedly burned for only about a half an hour or so, it said that one would expect to find the full skeletons of the 5 children rather than only 4 vertebrae.
Mm-hmm.
So the report concluded that the bones were most likely in the supply of dirt George used to fill in the basement to create the memorial for his children.
Yeah.
So this report launched 2 hearings at the Capitol in Charleston, after which Governor Oki L. Patterson
Mm-hmm.
and State Police Superintendent W.E. Burkett told the Sodders their search was hopeless and declared the case closed.
Mm-hmm.
Undeterred,
Mm-hmm.
George and Jenny erected a billboard along Route 16, which remained there for over 40 years,
Wow.
and passed out flyers offering a $5,000 reward for information leading to finding their missing children, a reward that soon increased to 10,000. A letter arrived from a woman in St. Louis said that the oldest missing girl, Martha, in a convent. Another came from Texas, where a patron in a bar overheard an incriminating conversation about a Christmas Eve fire in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Someone in Florida claimed the children were staying with a distant relative of Jenny's. George traveled the country to investigate every single lead and always returning home with nothing.
Right.
So in 1968, more than 20 years after the fire, Jenny went to get the mail and found an envelope addressed to her. It was postmarked in Kentucky, but had no return address. Inside was a photo of a man in his mid 20s. On its backside, a cryptic handwritten note read, Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie. Lil, Lill,
Mm-hmm.
boys. A90132 or 35. So Jenny and George could not deny the resemblance of their son Louis, who was 9 at the time of the fire.
Yeah.
They once again hired a PI and sent him to Kentucky, but they never heard from him again.
Hmm.
So the Sodders feared that if they published the photo in the papers, that they may cause harm to their son.
Yeah.
Instead, they updated the billboard photo with that image of Louis and hung an enlarged version over the fireplace. George did say in an interview about this time is running out for us, but we only want to know if they did die in the fire. We want to be convinced.
Right.
Otherwise, we want to know what happened to them. And George died later that year, or a
Mm-hmm.
year later.
Right.
In 1968, still hoping for a break in the case, Jenny erected a fence around her property and began adding rooms to her home. Since the fire, she had exclusively worn black and continued to do so until her death in 1989.
Yeah.
After Jenny's death, the billboard finally came down. Their children and grandchildren, however, continue the investigation to this day. They have come up with some theories on their own.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being the local mafia had tried to recruit George and he declined. Someone tried to extort money from George and he refused. Another one.
Mm-hmm.
So the children were kidnapped by someone they knew before the fire, is another theory. One theory I like is someone kidnapped them and told them their parents and the rest of their siblings died in the fire,
Yeah.
which would make sense as to why they would never go try to find their parents again.
Right.
So the last remaining sibling, Sylvia, who was 2 at the night of the fire, that's her first memory ever was the fire. Continued to look for her siblings, going on internet sleuth websites looking for theories until her death in 2021 at the age of 79.
Wow.
So, what do you think?
Okay. So I've actually heard this story from two different sides. One very conspiratorial, and the other just pointing out the direct facts like you were doing. And both pointed out kind of the same thing, that it really, really does sound like the entirety of the town was in on it. However, you can't just say that.
Right,
There's got to be hard proof behind it, but it damn sure does sound like it.
right.
Also, cremation thing.
I
Fire chief's a
I
douche.
don't I thought that I had put it in my notes, but when we got to that point, I realized I hadn't. When we got to the point where I was talking about the Smithsonian report,
Mm-hmm.
Jenny had visited the local crematorium and asked them about it, and he said that bones still remain after burning at 2,000 degrees for 2 hours.
Oh yeah, guaranteed.
And the house burned down in 45 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, one side of the story, they went and did their own kind of investigation on it, and found that to completely turn bone to ash, the temperature has to be above 3,500 degrees for more than 5.5 hours for that to be possible.
Right.
There's not any house out here that burns more than 3,000 degrees. And, there could be arguments to one side or the other, but the reason for the 3,000 degrees is because it's most exterior and interior walls are built out of pine and then just your standard materials throughout. Then the time frame and stuff like that too.
7 hours. A phone
Yeah,
tree doesn't even take that long, man. I could spit the fire out in that time.
I know Mr. Ballin did a spin on this one, and he kind of left it open for interpretation because he's like, look, a phone tree system is a phone tree system. However you determine that works, it is what it is. And I'm like, yeah, no, I get your point on that one. But it still should not have taken more than 2 hours
Right.
to get the entire assembly there, and somebody should have already been there.
Right.
But the mysterious thing, the incendiary device. Okay,
Yeah, you were going to talk about that.
yeah, Mr. Ballin, when he did research, like I guess there was a picture of it at one point or something like that somewhere. I don't know for sure, but Mr. Ballin had went into in depth on what it was because Mr. Ballin is previous Navy SEAL, so he has explosive experience. But an incendiary device is like a grenade that you throw and it ignites. That's all its purpose is to ignite.
Well, I was saying it was a napalm
Which,
pineapple
yeah.
something.
Do you know what napalm is?
It's an explosive powder.
Not explosive.
Oh.
It's flammable. Basically, with a pineapple grenade, it's literally just everyday fashioned grenade that you see pictures of with the stripes on the side. That's a pineapple grenade. With napalm inside of it, when you pull the pin and you throw it, it doesn't boom. It lights, it ignites it. And napalm pretty much doesn't matter what you do, it's not going out.
Gotcha.
Um, not going to talk about that too much more on a public platform
Okay.
because that could get you in a lot of lists. But anyway, no,
I mean, it kind of explains the bang and the rolling
the
sound.
bang and the rolling because it's a heavier chunk of metal that's being thrown, so it's gonna clunk
But it would
when it
have a
hits.
rubber piece on it.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No rubber. It's all made out of metal.
Well, he said they found a piece of rubber.
So
And
Mr.
he
Ballin,
concluded that that was.
yeah. So what Mr. Ballin had said, okay, I'm maybe misinterpreting or misunderstanding, but what he was saying about it, because from what I understand about a pineapple grenade is that like, or the one that he found was think like dodgeball, that really hard plastic in the center of an actual ball is what they found. And because there was what seemed like traces of napalm on the inside, that's where he was assuming that's what it was.
I didn't find anything like that about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where Mr. Ballin gets his info. I mean, he also has people that he pays to do research for him. So,
Yeah,
there's
I
that.
don't have that.
Right.
So I got pretty much all of the information for this story from the Smithsonianmag.com,
Mm-hmm.
which sources its information even further.
Yeah.
So story 2 for this week
Okay.
is number 9 on the list, the Christmas Day Grapevine Massacre.
Oh boy. I don't think I've heard of this one.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. 11:30 a.m. Christmas morning, 2011, Grapevine, Texas. 911 receives a call from Lincoln Vineyards Apartments in the 2500 block of Hall Johnson Road, and the call is silent on the other end.
Never a good sign.
Yeah, so they do their 911 dispatch thing. They triangulate the location of the call and dispatch some police to the apartment it came from.
Okay.
The police knock on the door and have no response.
Hmm.
So they do what they do. They have to, and break the door down.
Yeah.
So police find a bloody Christmas massacre. 7 people shot dead, wrapping paper everywhere. It appears as though they were still in the middle of opening presents when someone came in and shot them all. 4 women and 3 men, ranging in age from 15 to 58 years old.
Oh man.
So pretty quickly, they find that two of the dead people appear to have been holding guns when they died.
Okay.
A Smith & Wesson 915 model 9mm pistol with
Hmm.
a 15-round magazine,
Okay.
and a Glock 23 40 caliber pistol with a 10-round clip. The two,
Still a magazine.
okay, that's just the way that I found it just explained.
I
So
know, it's frustrating.
the two were the oldest men in the family, one of which was wearing a Santa suit.
Oh boy.
So they figured out whose name the apartment was under, did their little data place thing, and talked to the neighbors. They quickly figured out that the apartment was occupied by the, I'm going to butcher this name, Yazdan Panah family. Yazdan Panah family.
One of them.
And after sending all the bodies down to the morgue to be identified, it was discovered that the dead were 56-year-old Azizallah, who liked to go by Bob, the one dressed as Santa,
Okay.
his wife, 55-year-old Fatima Nazreen was her nickname, Ramadi, their
Okay.
daughter, 19-year-old Nargis, Nona was her nickname,
Mm.
their son, 14-year-old Ali, Nazreen's sister, 58-year-old Zohre Ramati, and her husband, 59-year-old Mohammed Hassin Zarai.
Okay, wait. Are all these people like of Islamic culture?
I believe so.
Okay, because I'm like, sounds like a little bit India. Sounds like a little bit of like just Middle Eastern. Okay, I'm tracking. I'm sorry.
And then okay, so Nazreen's sister, 58-year-old Zoreh, and her
Mm-hmm.
husband, Muhammad Hassan. It's Muhammad Hassan or Hussein Zarai.
Hussein.
Hussein, Harai. Yeah. Muhammad Hussein. And their daughter, 22-year-old Sarah, but it's spelled like Sahra.
Sarah.
Sarah. Sarah Fatima Zarai.
Okay.
Okay.
No, yeah, now I'm tracking.
Almost all of them were shot to death multiple times. No sign of struggle, no signs of break in the apartment was locked when the police arrived, as I already said. So
Right.
it appears as though, like I said before, it appears as though someone came in and interrupted Christmas morning gift giving with gunfire.
Yeah.
So almost all of them had been shot multiple times in the head.
Execution style.
Yes. Zarai's husband, Hussein, is what he preferred to go by. I know I said his name was Mohammed, but people referred to him as Hussein, so I'm assuming that's what he went by.
Okay.
So Zarai's husband, Hussein, had been shot the most out of everyone in the family and had been shot in quite a few different places, which led police to believe that he was running
Yeah,
while he was being shot to protect his family.
that would make sense.
And Hussein was shot by two different guns, while the
Oh,
rest of the family was shot with the same gun.
okay.
So he was the only one shot with two different guns out of all of them.
So he was the one that almost got away. That's what that tells me.
That's what that tells you. Okay. One thing that was holding up the police is that Bob Aziz,
Yeah.
who was dressed as Santa, was holding one gun and Hussein was holding the other.
Okay.
Which is odd considering he was shot in the chest, head, back, and legs by both of the only two guns found at the scene.
But the question is, did the caliber match what was being held?
So Aziz and his wife Nazreen were the only victims who sustained just one gunshot wound to the head.
That is pure execution style.
So they have the least amount of sustained gunshot wounds out of everyone in the family.
Right.
So something to be said, this neighborhood is known to be a very quiet, low crime rate type of neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Close-knit community. Everyone knows everyone.
But nobody reported a gunfire?
This was the first homicide in that county for that year, and it was at the end of the year. No, because you'll find out why.
Okay.
There wasn't
It's
time
Texas,
to.
that's why. Oh.
No. So the police start their investigation. Would you like to make a guess at this point?
So, What year is it again?
2011.
Hmm. And we're in Texas.
Yes.
Hmm. Okay, I'm gonna sound very asshole-ish about this, but I feel like it's a white group came in and assaulted an Islamic raced family.
I believe they're Indian.
Indian. Okay, well, they are of a different color.
Right.
In a,
In Texas.
I know the town. I know the town that they're from, and it's a strong white or Hispanic nature. That's about it.
So first they analyze the 911 call,
Okay.
and they hear something muffled in the background. So they try to isolate that sound, and they discover that it's someone in the distance saying, "Help me, help me."
Oh no,
Then they also hear someone say right after, "I'm shooting people." So they have the shooter's voice on the call.
that's weird.
Yeah, isn't it? But because it was probably slowed down and enhanced, they couldn't really identify. They didn't have any like identifiers to be sure whose voice it was.
Well, yeah.
So all they could really tell was it was definitely an older man that said that. It was a man's voice.
Okay.
So next they do ballistics,
Thankfully.
which for those of you who do not know, it's basically looking at the gunshot wounds on the victims and comparing them to the bullets to identify who was shot with what. It's also testing the bodies for gunshot residue.
Hmm.
Also comparing bullets to figure out what gun they came from. Doing the trajectory of the bullets. Sometimes they do that too. It's doing all these tests that they can do to solve a crime that involves a gun, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's what ballistic is. So they do the gunshot residue tests. And so the way that works, when you shoot a gun, especially in a closed space, the person shooting will have gunshot residue on them, most likely on their hands.
Yeah, because
But
when a bullet fires, the powder, not all of it ignites, and you get like a dust on your hand, even though you won't be able to see it.
right, not only does that get on the person who's shooting the gun, but sometimes in closed space, the person being shot will also get residue on them.
Especially if it's close.
Close range, yeah. Considering this crime was committed in a living room, it
It's
was
pretty
pretty
close
close
range.
range. So everyone did have some gunshot residue on them,
Okay.
but Bob, aka Santa, aka Aziz, had the most gunshot residue on him.
Was it on his hands?
Yes.
Okay.
But Hussein did not have very much on him at all. The
Okay.
other one that was holding the gun.
Right.
Also, in doing this ballistic analysis, they would have also done testing on the guns. And they found out that the gun that Hussein was holding had no fingerprints on it,
That's not good.
as if it had been wiped.
Right.
Hussein did not have gloves on when he died.
So
So
his
if he
finger
had
should
shot
have
the
been.
weapon, he would have left some prints. There's
Should have
no
been.
avoiding that. Like, it
No.
doesn't matter what you do. Like, you're going to get even a partial on there if you
Yeah.
don't have gloves on.
Most definitely. Yeah.
So the gun that Hussein was holding was a 9mm pistol.
Okay.
Police ran the serial number on that and found it was registered to Bob, aka Santa, aka Aziz.
Okay.
So,
So it's his gun.
but in one of the news articles I found, I know it's his name is Aziz, but one of the news articles I found said he went by Bob.
Okay.
So that's why I've been doing that. So at this point, they pretty much have an idea as to what has happened, but police take a look into the Yazdan Panah family.
Right.
So Aziz used to be a real estate agent, but had been unemployed for over a decade by this time.
Oh no. Okay. I see where
When
this is going.
when Aziz was still working, Nazreen was a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
They were both very old school, traditional, and were raised in that kind of family dynamic. Not knocking it, it's just facts. So Aziz worked, Nazreen cooked, cleaned, and cared for the kids.
Right.
But this did not last very long because Aziz was fudging the numbers on his taxes
Oh boy.
and got caught.
Oh no.
So he was ordered to pay a fine of $1,000 and he had to pay back an additional $30,000 in installments.
Oh damn.
So these regular installments were taking a lot out of the family's budget, and they were struggling to get by.
Yeah.
So Nazreen decides she is going to go get herself a job to make up the difference. And well, Aziz lost his shit over that. I
All
guess it
right.
was a huge fight between them because he wanted to be the man of the house supporting his family, and he found it as an insult.
Yeah.
So Aziz actually did not allow Nazreen to get a job at first until they literally had no choice because they were going to lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
So Nazreen, the independent queen that she is, she actually goes out and gets 2 different jobs at 2 different spas.
Oh, I bet that really pissed him off.
So the family is saved from being homeless or going hungry because of this, which ends up causing a lot of resentment in the household.
Yeah.
So Aziz was allowed to bitch and moan about things, but Nazreen and the kids weren't allowed to complain about anything.
Mm.
So the family was tense.
Yeah.
The kids are growing a lot of resentment towards their father, and Nazreen is growing resentment towards her husband.
Mm.
Aziz, he's being a dick to everyone, and no one can talk back.
Yeah.
So the family dynamic has kind of shifted now that Nazreen is working 2 jobs. Aziz is stuck at home doing the woman's work, quote unquote, and
Right.
he's feeling emasculated. Oh, you poor thing. So Aziz hates this, and he's being very vocal about it to his wife and kids.
Mm.
But they aren't allowed to be like, well, I wonder why things are this way, Dad. Like, that's right, you fucked it up. You
Yeah.
know? Well, after a while, Nazreen's 2 jobs still weren't really making ends meet, and the family had to file for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So obviously, that makes things even more tense at home, and given this family dynamic, not very good.
No.
So, after years and years of what sounds like, at the very least, possible verbal abuse, but could have possibly been even worse, that we just don't know because they didn't talk to their friends and their family outside
Right.
of themselves. So, Nazreen finally says, I've had it. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce. She took their 2 kids, Nona and Ali, and they moved to a smaller, more affordable apartment,
Mm.
only about 2 miles away from the house. Nazreen and her kids were going to start over in life with Aziz and his abuse gone.
Right.
So Aziz is not happy about this, not in the least. He is financially dependent on Nazreen.
Yeah.
And how dare they leave him when he wasn't done being a dick to them? So once Nazreen and the kids leave, Aziz does nothing. Like the neighbors just see him chilling at home, doing some gardening. We don't know what his relationship was like with his kids at this time. There is nothing supporting that he was or was not spending time with them. But we do know Nona, the daughter, did tell some of her friends at school that things were still tense since moving out on their own.
Mm.
So I am assuming that Aziz and Nazreen were still probably fighting at this time.
I feel like the reason why he did nothing is because it's like having been in a demasculated situation, I guess, if you want to call it that. I'm not that bad of a person, but you kind of mope when things go to hell in a handbasket, and when you have no idea what to do next, you do the only thing you can, which is just stare at yourself.
So then Christmas Eve 2011 came, and Nazreen and her kids decided to throw a little Christmas Eve party. And they invited the entire family, like even distant relatives. It was a big party. They, however, did not invite Aziz.
Ouch.
And Aziz somehow found out about this party and he was fuming.
Mm.
This was his breaking point.
Yeah.
So, Christmas morning 2011, before 11 a.m., Aziz showed up at Nazreen's apartment wearing a Santa suit. Now, I imagine that Nazreen didn't really want him there, but it is the father of her children and still her husband. So
Mm.
she must have felt some sympathy for him and wanted him to be able to be with his kids because she let him in.
Right.
We do know that he wasn't exactly welcomed with open arms and warmth because Nazarine's niece, Sarah, texted her friends saying, "So we're all here. My uncle is here too. Dot, dot, dot. Dressed as Santa."
Mm-hmm.
Then 15 minutes later, she texts, "And now he wants to be all fatherly and win Father of the Year." So Sarah is like 22. So she, I imagine, would be more likely to see through someone's BS more so than a child.
Yeah.
So she's seeing red flags.
Mm-hmm.
Then just 5 minutes after Sarah sent that last text, the 911 call occurred. So within less than 5 minutes after that text, the shooting happened.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so somebody called while the shooting was still happening. That's why no one else called 911.
Right.
Or they probably did.
Well, I was just saying, like, was there no other outside, like, hey, I heard gunshots. This is not.
I'm sure there was.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is also Christmas Eve, so
Yeah.
hearing gunshots probably wouldn't be
Christmas
abnormal.
morning.
Christmas morning. Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that was
Yeah, I see where that went downhill fast.
yeah.
Still kind of confused on the one holding the gun.
Well, from what is gathered there is that Aziz started shooting everyone
Mm-hmm.
and first had the thought, how about I wipe the gun, put it in Hussein's hand, frame him, get the fuck out of here. And
Mm.
then at some point, he either thought like he's not gonna get away with it, or what the fuck did I just do? Because he shot himself in the head.
Right. Man, like, there is a breaking point to every person. Doesn't matter who you are. There is a breaking point. I get it. But to eliminate your own family because
Because
of
they
your
didn't.
mistakes,
Yeah.
that is never going to be okay. I can't even, as somebody who has struggled in my life on all shapes and sides, it's that's never once been a thought that if I just eliminated my people around me, everything would be okay. But I guess, I've never filed for bankruptcy, gotten close, but never have. I don't know. That is an insane ordeal.
You know what's crazy is like police talk to like family and friends, and he was just this they had
Charismatic.
yeah, charismatic, kind person. They were completely shocked. But at home, he was treating his kids and wife like shit for his mistakes.
Well, they always do say what happens behind closed doors. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is a rough. And on Christmas morning, wow. Like,
Mm-hmm. So what do you got?
well, okay. Mine's kind of Christmas era, I guess. But how about I give you a few facts? Okay. Um, as with last week, my facts are backdated because I have several episodes worth of notes ahead of time.
Yes.
So these don't fall on the correct day, but I will just tell you years instead of days. How about that? So, in 2018, a 2,400-year-old Greek shipwreck was found in the Black Sea. And then in 1975, Elton John, your hero, was awarded his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
I love me some Elton John. Now, what date was that supposed to be for?
Uh, October 27th. So, yeah. And then in 1915, 25,000 plus people marched on the Women's Suffrage March in New York City.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, according to Archbishop James Usher of Armagh, God created the world in 4004 BC
On October 27th?
on October 27th.
Okay.
This was based off of a calculation that was published of biblical events in 1650. According to Isaac Newton, he believed that the Earth was only 4,000 years old. Or was created in 4000 BC. I think he was a little bit off for
Maybe
being
a
a
lot
science
bit.
man. However, the most important fact for October 27th, which this is not when this episode airs anymore, right? It was Ryan Reynolds' birthday, and he's turning 46 years old.
He turned 46.
Yeah. So, oh, and also it was Weird Al's birthday. He was turning 63. But now, I was going to say, hey, we're getting pretty close to Halloween. This is my next note on here. We're getting pretty close to Halloween, so I wanted to. But how about this? We're closing out spooky season, turning into jolly season. So this is my last creepy one. So I'll just start working on moving forward from there. But I do have a bit creepier than normal, supernatural-ish, paranormal, cryptid-ish story for you.
Okay.
Okay. Have you ever heard of the Black-Eyed Children?
I have not.
Okay. Well, I want you to picture this in your head as we prepare for bed after this.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're home alone. Your kids are fast asleep,
I already don't like this.
and it's after dark. You're already getting yourself ready for bed, and then you hear knock, knock, knock at the front door. When you answer the door, there are two children just hanging their heads low, but they're just a little too pale.
Are you my mommy?
No.
Doctor Who fans will get that.
Yeah. No, but instead, in unison, they say, "Excuse me, can you let us in?" And
No.
then you see their eyes. They're all black.
They can fuck off.
uh, it kind of feels like another creepypasta turned tulpa to me, because like you don't really hear a whole lot about black-eyed children until recently, and there's more and more stories coming about. And you thing with creepypasta versus copypasta, you don't know what's true and what's not anymore. But there were reportings of this like early 70s into the 80s and stuff like that, but they didn't call them anything. They just thought it was weird, like aliens or paranormal or something. But the name Black-Eyed Children became associated with them and accepted into the title in the 90s. Now, Black-Eyed Children is apparently an American legend, and it is a paranormal creature, childlike resemblance between the ages of 6 and 16. They
That's
garnish.
a wide age range.
Well, you'll understand in a little bit. They are very, very pale in comparison to most people. And if you see their eyes, or when you see their eyes, no pupils, no irises, no nothing. It's just all black. Now, where you'll experience black-eyed children the most is you'll find them hitchhiking or at a residential home knocking on your doors. However, they're always asking to be let in, whether
No.
to be for your car or your house. And the most notable factor about how they talk to you is then very uncomfortable, like proper form of speech. Like it is as if someone had translated into English using a dictionary.
Okay.
You know, like there's no slang, there's no uh, stuttering of a word, there's no nothing. It's very precise, proper verbiage and very elegant speech.
Okay.
Now, the term black-eyed children can actually be sourced back to 1996 in Abilene, Texas. Okay. Reporter Brian Bethel reported that there were 2 alleged encounters. His experience, similar but unrelated encounter, happened in Portland, Oregon. He tells his story on Monsters and Mysteries in America in 2012 on April 14th, episode 4 of season 1. I've actually seen this episode of Monsters and Mysteries in America. I remember the episode, and the guy seems a little off, to say the least. As a reporter, he's a little not all there. But
Okay.
maybe experiencing the black-eyed children kind of did this to him. But after this, by the year 2012, when this episode airs and stuff like that, black-eyed children are considered just a really good creepypasta, and becomes so popular, in fact, that there is actually a frequently asked question page that has been created for
Okay.
this. Now, in 2014, there was 3 front page articles ran on the Daily Star tabloid, and they report several experiences throughout the UK. For this being an American legend, interesting that it's happening over the pond, you know?
Uh-huh.
And as time goes on, there are more and more sightings being reported all over the world.
Huh.
So that's where my theory of this becoming a tulpa comes into play, is because as communication, as technology, and the interwebs gets more extensive, stuff like this is spread all the way around the world. So now more and more people are thinking about it, and more people are experiencing it.
Uh-huh.
And some kind of think that they're also alien related, but I don't know. um, Now, science writer Sharon A. Hill, she actually did an investigation on her own, and she finds, in her opinion, no evidence of this, just her opinion, that it feels like a campfire ghost story that's been passed around like folklore, growing with the internet. So, creepypasta. It doesn't help that the Inquisitor has lots of articles about the black-eyed children either, because we all know how the Inquisitor works. But just as real, they claim it's just as real as every Bigfoot sighting out there. That doesn't help the case. Um, Now, since some evidence is that that really bad claim, um, like unknown DNA hair, strange large footprints, and sound recordings, and so on of Bigfoot, there's also that same thing going on with black-eyed children. Because I remember specifically that there was like a video of this guy's front porch, and he lives out in the sticks somewhere, just middle of nowhere, in a cabin-ish situation, and he starts um, posting kind of like a Reddit situation. Maybe it was 4chan back in the day. I don't know. But he starts posting out there that, hey, I need help. I need to know what to do. I keep hearing weird noises in the middle of the night. It sounds like somebody's whispering outside my window, and I don't know what to do. I live out in the middle of nowhere. My nearest neighbor is like miles away or something like that. And somebody told him to use his laptop's uh, webcam and just record to his laptop directly his security light from I guess basically from his coffee table. You could see his front porch if you aimed it directly enough. And I told him just record it. And in that video, just randomly in the middle of the night, the porch light goes completely off. All electricity goes off in the cabin. You can hear everything just kind of shut down. And then you see the light from the laptop light up and reflect. And walking up to the reflection of the light is a child with just purely black eyes.
Creepy.
Mm-hmm. And it just kind of ends there. So it could be just as much of a fake as anything else, but it could also be real. You never know. Shit's creepy. But the really interesting thing is that there is a reported case that stands out amongst all of them. And it kind of ties into the Christmas thing here because this is wintertime. If the reports of this elderly couple from Vermont can be believed, this is a full first-hand account where many of them are just stories and copies of stories and stuff like that. So you never know. But if we were to believe what these people say, this is a true first-hand experience. Now, they do request to stay anonymous, so I'll just call them husband and wife. And their story goes like this. On a cold, wintry evening, nearing Christmas time, in Vermont, husband and wife are settling in for their post-dinner routine, where wife sits down to watch her favorite TV show, and the husband sits down to read the newspaper. And the wife brought husband a cup of hot cocoa when she heard a knock at the door. So the wife goes over, opens the door. Standing in front of her is a young boy and a young girl with their heads hung low, approximately age 10 and age 7, respectively. The boy mumbles out to her, "Our parents will return soon. May we await them inside?" Unfortunately, not wanting to let children freeze, she lets them in. And I say unfortunately because it's like, this is a situation. So, but she lets them in. It's cold outside. It's Vermont, so it's colder than it is here.
Mhm.
She doesn't want to let kids freeze. Nobody really wants to let a kid freeze.
Right.
So, having not seen anything suspicious about this, and just being told that, hey, our parents are coming, can we wait for them inside? In a very weird voice, she lets them in, tells them to come sit on the couch, and offers them some cocoa. Kids don't respond. They just sit silently with their heads down. So the wife just goes ahead and gets them 2 cups. She brings them over, sits them on the coffee table in front of the children. The husband just not really looking up from his paper too much yet and trying to get a little conversation going, keep the awkward silence away. He asks the kids a few random conversational starter, breaking the ice kind of questions, and the kids answer absolutely nothing.
Creepy.
Mouth silent, looking down at the floor, haven't touched their cocoa, not moving, not even holding hands, not worried about one another like you would think 2 kids stranded would do. When the wife sets the cups on that coffee table, they both look up into her eyes directly. Pure black.
Ew.
And they ask her both at the exact same time. Mind you, have not said a word to this point other than, can we wait for them inside? May we use your restroom? Both of them just completely caught off guard and a little weirded out. She just directs directs the kids to the bathroom down the hallway. And she asks her husband, "Did you see their eyes?" And she's like, kind of like stuttering over herself, frozen. And she turns around to look at her husband because he hasn't really responded. And he's leaning back, pinching his nose because he has a sudden nosebleed. Now,
You're not supposed to do that.
yeah. Well, the wife notes as the kids walk down the hallway that 4 of her cats are hunching their backs and hissing at the kids.
Huh.
It's extremely abnormal for these cats to do that, by the way. They're the friendliest cats in the world. They'll just come up to anybody and be friendly and hug and snuggle and purr and whatever. And she's like, just kind of weirded out at this point. But she realizes that her husband's nose is bleeding, so she's trying to help him take care of that. And just as she reaches over to grab a wet rag for her husband, all the power goes out. So she rushes down the hallway to the bathroom to check on the children. It's at the end of the hallway, But just as she gets to the hallway, she hears the kids simultaneously speaking together. Our parents have arrived.
That's creepy as fuck.
All the power's out, so it's dark as all get out.
Right.
It's already after dark because it's winter time, it's snowing. These kids, without knowing this house layout at all at this point, walk straight down the hallway, through the living room, to the front door, unlatch the front door, and walk out. Leave the front door open and just walk out. The wife notices a man and a woman's silhouette standing at the end of the driveway. There's no car in sight, though. Nothing. Just all the cars in the neighborhood parked in the driveways and stuff like that.
That's creepy.
And a few moments pass as they start walking. All the street lamps go out. Every light goes out. And then as the parents, well, the silhouette of a man, a silhouette of a woman, and the silhouette of the two children pass out of sight down the road a little ways into kind of a wooded situation, all the power turns back on. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Over the next week or so, the husband nosebleeds continue regularly. And this is extremely strange because he has never had a nosebleed in his entire life. 3 out of 4 of her cats go missing, only to be found days later laying on the front or on the back porch or in the backyard in a pool of blood. Husband, feeling the nosebleed is a major concern, winds up going to the hospital, checking the doc. Turns out he has stage 4 skin cancer. Skin cancer. He has signs of radiation poisoning, and they test the wife just in case. She has radiation poisoning too. This encounter has brought many theorists around, and paranormalist might be something to do with it being aliens, the radiation, the skin stuff.
Yeah, I was feeling aliens.
Yeah, and the parents being shadow people, which is a whole different can of worms. A demonologist has suggested that they're demons.
Yeah, well, that's what a demonologist would do.
Conspiracy theorists out there have deemed that it's highly likely that they have come from alternate dimensions. Or they're, hidden ancient people, ancient civilization type people like lizard people. Now, other encounters have reported that seeing their eyes give away that their dark intentions, that there's something sinister going on. And every time you read something about black-eyed children, number one rule, if they talk in unison and they're not looking you in the face and they're just two children randomly knocking on your door, don't let them in.
Yeah.
No matter what. But be fair warned, they're going to get violent if you don't let them in. Because they'll start banging on your windows and doors, nicely saying, "May we please come in? May we come in?"
Stop.
But they're slamming with aggressiveness on your doors and
This
your windows.
This is creeping me out, man.
Yeah. And like I said, they're always calling out to you in the calmest, creepy voice. And they're always going to ask you if they can come in.
Ugh.
Now, like I said, my reason for this, I believe this being a tulpa situation, is because the claims of seeing these are growing astronomically around the world. And like I told you about the one video that I remember seeing, there's even more video evidence of these children now, in random locations around the world. There's even a story that a woman told on Reddit about her mother and her experiencing black-eyed children, and they happen to be just two teenage boys. And would have thought really nothing of it in the first place, but they just came out of nowhere after the parents went shopping, and the mother and the daughter went shopping, knocked on the window, And mother wasn't really thinking anything of it. She looks over and he goes, "Hey, can we get a ride?" And mother, trying to be nice, goes, "Oh yeah." Daughter slams the door locks, screams at her mother, "Just drive." And her mom panics, puts it in drive, hauls ass, and she goes, What is going on?" She goes, "You didn't see their eyes? There's nothing there. They're just solid black."
Ew.
Mm-hmm. But there's also been reports of trail cams. You know what trail cam is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, for anyone who doesn't, just think still images taken by a motion activated camera. Um, there's pictures of just two random children. Think like slightly older than Annie. One's a boy, one's a girl. Just walking through the middle of the woods together, and there is no reflectiveness from their eyes, which infrared does reflect in your eyes, no matter what. It's going to. Nothing. Just nothing there. But you can see the pale white skin of their bodies, and they're like, it's freezing temperatures, and they're like a t-shirt and shorts. Just, it's getting creepier. And many of the reports, even like before Ring Cam, people would put like security cameras out on the front porch and stuff like that. They would report that their lights go out when these kids arrive, no matter if they just change the light bulb, like that afternoon, front porch light goes out, and then here comes the kids. Um, but the kids will always stay in dark areas, and like I said, their eyes do not reflect light, just nothing. They're just black pits, and it is insane. So what do you think about that?
I think it's fucking creepy. That's what I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So when when we go lay down here a little bit, and you know, you hear
Can
at the
eat a
front
dick.
door.
I wouldn't hear the front door from upstairs anyway.
You say that, but you never know. What would be even creepier if you hear the knock on the front door, like manage to hear a knock from the front door, or you hear and it's on the window.
The window.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that freak you
Wait,
out.
are you trying to fuck with me?
A little bit.
Stop it. No, I'm a scaredy cat.
I know.
I
So
thought you loved me.
I do. I love to fuck with you too.
Yeah.
So, dear, what is our word of the day?
Mine. M-I-E-N.
Is it mine or is
Or
it
is it
mean?
mean?
Because
I
there's
don't
a
know.
pronunciation thing right
I don't
underneath
fucking
it.
know what the E with the squiggly line means.
That is a straight line above the E.
Okay, I don't know what that means.
It means it's a hard E sound.
Okay. So mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Air or bearing, especially as expressive or of attitude or personality.
Oh yeah, like you're mean.
Demeanor. Appearance, aspect. The speaker projected a stern and serious mien from the lectern, but we found him to be friendly and welcoming when we spoke with him in the social hall afterward.
Who talks like that?
Did you know?
Oh boy.
Like its synonyms, bearing and demeanor, mean means the outward manifestation of personality or attitude.
Mm.
Bearing is the most general, but it often implies characteristic posture, as in a woman of regal bearing. Demeanor suggests attitude expressed through outward behavior in the presence of others. For example, the manager's professional demeanor. Mean is a somewhat literary term referring to both bearing and demeanor, as in a mien of supreme self-satisfaction. The mean arose through the shortening and alteration of the verb demean, which also comes from the Anglo-French demeanor, to conduct.
Okay.
A combination of the D prefix with meaner, to lead, that is also the root of demeanor. In this case, demean means to conduct or behave oneself usually in a proper manner, not to degrade. All right.
Okay.
No idea what I just said.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Tell them where they can find us.
Okay. So you can find us on all podcasting platforms. And if you would be so kind, however the rating system goes on whatever
Rate, comment, subscribe,
yeah,
like, share.
do all that stuff. Do all the
Yeah.
social media things. You can find us under This and That with Me and You on those. And then you can find that also on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. Still working on getting caught up on things. Be patient. We will be there eventually. Uh, we, however, if you do have personal stories, comments, complaints, concerns, direct them to somebody else. No, I'm just kidding. You can reach out to us at our email, which is this and that, or no, excuse me. You can reach us at our email, which is tatwmay1 at gmail.com.
tatwmay. I can't say it neither.
Yeah.
tatwmay1 at gmail.com.
Yep. And yeah, I think that's about all the social media things. Make sure you check out the video on YouTube. I'll have pictures up on there for sure. Where, like I said, we're getting back on track. It's just getting back into the hang of things, the routine and stuff. So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
make sure you make sure you like, share, comment,
We already
subscribe,
said that.
social media. It's fine. That stuff.
Have the day that you deserve.
Yep. Have the day you deserve.
And
We'll catch you next time.
all right. Bye.
Bye.